Hey everyone, you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture. I am your host, Andrew Davis, and this episode is brought to you by my sponsors, Mixon Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixon is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixon is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now, you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has also printed so many successful Kickstarter campaigns, a bunch of them you have even heard about on this very show. And they currently offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK, and Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And right now, listeners on my show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of a current order to get a 5% discount on their first order. So that is mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to receive a 5% discount on your first order. Also, I do have a t-shirt up on Redbubble, and it is a Mecha t-shirt, and I am speaking to one of the best Mecha designers on the indie front in comics. So go buy my t-shirt, everybody. I need the money. And I figured it's Gundam, and I figured you'd appreciate it. So obviously, having tipped off my hat here, I have with me for the second time Thomas Johnson II, who's responsible for the Raxxon universe. So welcome back.
Welcome. Thank you. Happy to be here.
You know, I am excited to have you back on because I'm a big Mecha fan, and obviously we're joking around before all this interview stuff on Facebook, and your book is basically Robotech done better. So, but us joking aside, and I do want to catch everybody up to speed a little bit because it's been 2 years since you were last on for season 1. What is the Raxxon universe, and what does it entail for those who have no idea and are hearing about this for the first time?
Oh, that's a big one. Well, Raxxon is a sci-fi adventure, as we could say. I don't want to say it's fully mechanized, but it is in effect the mechanized genre, because there are plenty of mechs, power armors, robots, but there's also tons of starships, tons of characters, tons of aliens, and an entire universe that I built around it. So, and just so people will know too, it does have a beginning and it does have an ending. It's just a huge, expansive universe that a lot of is getting told pretty much through the comics, but also in other books as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in your universe, obviously, and we're going to dive into it, and I promise, because I love talking about this stuff, and I make the joke that it's Robotech done better because it is very much in that vein, and I love this shit. So this is one of the things, and I am curious, and I think we should dive into the story because obviously we're dealing with Earth pretty much gets a messenger by an alien species that they're going to be thrusted into a war with these two alien type creatures, possibly a third alien type creature, and then they form Eden, which is Elite Defense Earth Network, and then that just spawns out a bunch of other stuff that happens. So where did this idea even come from? Because when you're building a universe, you start with one little spark, but then this thing has just expanded outwards all over the place. And as you stated, there is a start to it, there's an end, but it's how did you get to the end?
Whew.
So what was this like, really building this out and even coming up with the concept? Because we're going to dive into each of the parts of it in a second.
Okay. Well, it really started back in, I'm going to say, giving away my age here, in the late 80s. I was inspired, growing up watching G.I. Joe, Transformers, everything like that. Well, before Transformers really hit the mainstream, I was watching like G.I. Joe. They had a lot of other cartoons that used to come on. One was called The Spiral Zone, which was pretty interesting. There's some aspects of that I liked. At first it started off with, I was just designing just body armors and vehicles, not even power armors, robots, or anything like that, because I used to be kind of scared to draw those things. Just like when I was way younger, I really didn't draw people. So it kind of started off that way, and it kind of started slowly developing until one day I drew a mech. and I drew it. It was only like about 2 or 3 inches tall on a piece of paper. It was really just a scrap, and I was just bored. It was a Sunday morning, and I was just drawing. I was like, wait a minute, that actually looks kind of cool. So I wound up asking my mom, could she take it to work and put it on a copy machine and blow it up for me? Because we're talking about probably like at that point, we probably like talking about 1989. So she does that, brings it home. I get some tracing paper, draw it over, clean it up and everything. And I'm like, wow, okay. So then it just kind of sparked from there where I started just tinkering and drawing robots. And then because the name, it wasn't all the way Raxxon Universal Dominion, it was just Raxxon at first. And then that name came from a combination of different things of, what was it? The video game Zaxxon from way back in the day.
See, I'm too young to know this, but I know it. That's the problem. I'm 29, so clearly, I
Yeah.
went backwards in anime and comics. I did not go forward. It's not horrific. It's just like all like the 80s and the early 90s, all like the cartoons and all that stuff is the good shit. Like,
Yeah, I used to love that stuff. And that name kind of inspired me a little bit. And I was like, Then the video game Contra, that came out. It was like, I wonder, So it was just messing around one day, and it was like it just popped in my head, and I was like, okay, name Raxxon. Then I was like, let's add some more to it. And Universal Dominion came with it, and I was like, okay, it's different. I like it. All right, screw it. Let's go with it. And at that point, like whenever I would draw stuff like robots, I try to be like, I envision those into the story. And then I basically started off with 3 robots at first that I had drew. And then I was like, well, looking at Contra kind of gave me the inspiration to draw the aliens. So I started drawing the alien races. Actually, there was even like one of the races was inspired by an old friend of mine, Sean Carpenter, him and his brother. And Sean used to draw this race called these creatures called the Gorn at that time. And they kind of like had ram horns on their heads or bull horns on their heads. And I was kind of like, it took me back to that. And I was like, I said, if I take a little bit of combination of what he did and a little bit of what I got in mind, and I wound up creating an entire race from that called the Garamedri, which are like almost like reptilian types with horns.
so
Um,
let's even talk about them a little bit because they're one of the enemies.
yeah,
And what is this like? Really building them out and their objectives and what they're trying to do, and even why they're involved in this war. And then the other one is the Torva Hydrax. I think it is the way
I,
it's said.
yeah,
And so, what
yeah,
was this like really creating these? Because these are the enemies, and then we're going to talk about the Earth Force because we can't have bad guys without the good guys.
yeah. Well, they were inspired by insectoid type, slightly insectoid type, but very different from insects. Um, those 2 races came about along with the third one, which is one that we've kind of been helping in this situation because there's several races, but the Raxxon itself is the biggest thing in the whole story. Everything kind of revolves around. If it wasn't for the Raxxon, none of this would be happening.
It's
Uh,
kind of like the Invid fleeing the hematites and Robotech.
something like that, but it's like,
I didn't say it was exactly like that. I'm just giving you
yeah.
an idea. I'm sneaking a little stuff in there. I know what
basically,
happens.
basically, what it is that there's a race that was fleeing the Garamedri and Torva Hydax, which is called the Lena Minari. Basically, they all came from one planet. And something very bad happened there that sparked a war amongst themselves.
I
To
swear she
where,
didn't get a birthday present. It was not my fault. I swear.
ha,
I tried. The store was out of it. It was not my fault.
Yeah, something bad happened, very bad happened between the three of them. And it basically the Garrett Medri and the Torva Hydex want all the Lena Minari dead. So their war started probably over 1,000 years ago. And they've been chasing them throughout the stars, hunting them down and killing them, to where a fleet of their ships came here. And for some reason, we let them here. We
This
allowed
is really an asylum story, isn't it? It's an asylum story.
Kinda, yeah. But it goes even further as to the, yeah, it's like, it's not going to be, it might seem like the typical thing of, yeah, here comes aliens coming to Earth, him's going to give them amnesty, this and that. But there's a lot more as to why. And
then obviously, this group of aliens that came then sort of give Earth some technology and give Earth a boost of technology. And then, well, Earth is now thrusted into this entire war that now has spun out of a whole bigger thing, which is the Elite Defense Earth Network, Eden. And so what was this like even establishing this? Because I think people don't understand that you've built this entire thing yourself. And that's one of the things that I think is so interesting is that, and the reason why I bring up Robotech is that Robotech's a big world and Macross is a big world, which is sort of the Japanese, equivalent / there's a divergence between the two. But many people have worked on Macross and Robotech. You've done all of this by yourself. And so what was this like really establishing Eden? Because that's sort of one of the standard bearers with these three alien species as well, and even the Raxxon itself. And so what was that like? Because that's sort of the counterbalance to the alien forces.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about the Raxxon is its story was kind of told in one of the comic books in one of the comic stats in the Arc 1 of the first 12, it kind of, you see a glimpse as to several things that happened. Well, you never know where the Raxxon came from, but you saw what it did and what it created. And so that's how its power is so immense that, right now it's asleep and it's dormant, and they are using it, kind of as a power source and a bunch of other things. But just to give a little clarification too, like when Eden was formed before the aliens even came. The human race had already colonized a lot of worlds and everything, because we were on the verge of going to war in another set of the division wars, as they was titled, which was different worlds became different divisions. And
there's good stuff in there too.
Many of those came under the umbrella of Eden, while others wanted to keep their independence. Well, those that wanted to keep their independence, some of them wanted to be in control of everything. So everyone was kind of like at an arms race of building up their weapons, super weapons and everything. And then just as they were on the, verge of a war, we get alien life. And everything changed from that point.
Yeah, let's even talk about that, because there's a lot of moving parts here. And that's something that is so fascinating, where, we got the division wars, and we got, obviously, divisions are supposed to share information with each other, and then they're not doing that. And we got, obviously we got Crimson Star, and a little spoiler alert, they sort of want to rule the universe to some degree, because that's Mars, and they got some issues in their own backyard. And then obviously you got Eden, which we're talking about, and then you got, Alloys First, which is the division of the moon, and it's colonized, and their life is harsh, but they're always prepared for war, and they're sort of Earth's, I guess, first primary defense force to some degree. And then you have Shadow Major, and this was the Titan division, and they may or may not be shadowy.
Right.
And so what was this like? And then you got Alpha Turbines, and then obviously a variety of other stuff like Armored Tide, and I fucking love Armored Tide. Yeah, you don't fuck with Armored Tide. In the end of that discussion. What's the story with Armored Tide? Isn't it that, like, no ship ever can get like in like 25 miles of their orbit, pretty much, if they don't want it
That's
to land.
actually Tarantus. That's Onyx Aquafina. That any ships
Oh
that they're
yeah.
they're watching you in orbit, and it's like they can render your ships powerless, and you don't even know what hit you. Basically, they can have you as a sitting duck in orbit.
And so and then obviously there's all these other things. There's the Mordor Boy Legion, which I love them as well. And so what is this like? Because this is super interesting because now we're really getting into this. And this is like real military and real building out these different divisions and the colonization. And this is what I love about the first 12 arcs is that we get this story. And what was that like? Because this adds all the stuff, and also some of this stuff is taking place at the same time. Other parts of this are taking place at different times. And so, what was this like really building all this out? Because now each of these units is dealing with a different threat. And they're dealing with some of the same aliens, but they're also dealing with each other. And there's issues and there's real consequences for their actions.
Absolutely. It's like I kind of like took things of more politics. So I didn't just want it to be just a, the typical alien versus human shooting. That's it, no depth, to where you get more of an understanding as to uh, how humans are with each other. Where different divisions may have different assets, where some may not be as strong as others, and they kind of partner up with other ones. But everybody's trying to, be on the same page to an extent, to see what's going to happen and how far is this war going to actually take everybody. Because you have some that are like, this war shouldn't even be taking place. Whereas others are thinking this could be the perfect opportunity for things. Like the Mortar Boy Legion, how it was founded was colonies
Get
that went,
to it. I promise.
well, little things, but people who needed help, put it that way.
Yeah,
um,
because one of the things is that a lot of this stuff, obviously, some of this stuff obviously takes place initially, like mobilization sort of kicks everything off in a lot of ways, and I think that's the entry point. At least
yeah,
right now, I'm presuming, and you're still on arc one, and I'm assuming there's going to be an entry point into arc two, and so on and so forth. But a lot of this other stuff also takes place where something that takes place on Mars might not affect Titan in the same way
right.
where because there's not going to be a ship from Mars that's going to go and save the Titan force, for lack of a better word. But at the same time, what still happens on Titan does affect the entire war collectively, and it's so interesting because you're moving a lot of pieces around, and I find this fascinating in what's going on, and even just the different natures of the unit as well, and how some units are more political than others, and even just the thought of it all, and even just the upbringing of said unit. Like Alpha Turbine has a very different view than Mars, than the Crimson Stars have. And it's so interesting that there's so much depth into what you created. It's massively impressive. I'm pissed that I didn't think of it.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of moving parts to it. I've had people say, well, you don't have one main hero. And I'm like, no, it's not that kind of story. I'm like, you have main characters that a lot of things will happen to them and around them, where you'll see them in more than one comic. But the story is not just a overnight story. It's taking place over years. So just like let's just take Mobilization, the first book. You know, when that story kicks off on the first few pages, it's literally 60 years after the first 60 to 65 years after the first Lena Minari, when the first incident with the aliens and their first encounter, their first skirmish. And Eden has been building up its forces over those 60 years. And so once what happens in like say it's the kickstart of the initial, that's when the war actually starts, is that day when the Garamandri and Torva Hydex bring their forces, well, majority of their forces to Earth. And Eden's first true skirmish with them. And that's when we learn we get a small piece of what we're up against, and that people begin to learn that you're not just up against mindless creatures, and that this isn't going to be as easy as anybody was thinking on either side.
Yeah, and you mentioned something super interesting, and we're going to get back to this in a second. But one of the things you mentioned that's really, really interesting is that there's no one main hero, and you've built out a universe. It's almost the universe is the constant, and even just the mecha side of it, and the fact that they're fighting these aliens and these creatures, and they're trying to figure out what they want on the Raxxon is the constant overall. And what is that like for you? Because I feel like that's something that is a common mistake in comics right now, where you've almost diversified your entire universe because you cannot like a particular character. You could say, look, I don't like Crimson Star, for instance. Those guys are assholes. And, you could be like, I don't really like what Shadow Major's doing. And they might be up to some shady shit here, but they got some sweet ass mechs. And that's something that I think adds a lot more diversity, and it also draws different people in, where you can actually pick a unit and pick a side you want to be on. And you could like the Mortar Boy Legion, for instance, you could be like, hey, those are the underdogs. And you could be like, well, Eden is cool and all, but that's my unit, right? And it adds for further monetization and a lot of other things. And I think you've hit on something, whether that was intentional or not, that is a mistake in comics, especially when people are building out universes. Tyrone does this really well as well with the Soulverse universe, where he's got a bunch of different specs and SKUs, as I like to call it. And maybe that's not the correct word, but I can like a certain book. Like I can like Temple High more than I can like another book. Where I actually really like Stars. I actually think Stars is a really enjoyable book that he put out. But it's the idea that, it's my favorite book that he put out over Temple High, but that also adds for further monetization where you can actually pick a side, and then if you don't like one thing, you could just stay in the little track that you're in. So what was that like, really building out that out, for lack of a better word?
Doing that's actually the fun part, because my business partner, Damone Amerson, because without him, this wouldn't even be here. Uh, he's the one who kind of started giving me more details on like the divisions, because at one point I was kind of 2D with him, or 1D almost, and he got it to 3D. And but like the creating to each division, I just kept going further and further, because at first it was just divisions, you know, on just a few planets. Then I was like, no, let's take it a little further. Let's have more divisions, more planets. Let's talk about their planets, how their planets are run, like their government system, the way they do anything, the alloys that are on their planets, which make those divisions unique versus them just being, okay, that's a human colony on another planet. Like, well, what makes them different besides their logo or whatever? It's like the whole, like with Mars, theirs is more of a dictatorship, you know, is what they're currently under. But it works for them because their military is pretty damn strong. It rivals a lot. They may not have as many, but they're just as strong. They're like one of the strongest divisions in it. And but like for that, you have uh like say Onyx Aquafina, which people have told me some of theirs is their favorite one because of who's in charge there. They like some of the main characters. Like say some people attach to the divisions because of the characters, some attach because of the mechs, some attach because of the ships, and it's like for me, I'm like, hey, I'm not going to tell you to attach yourself to anybody else, whoever you want to, you know. The only thing I just tell people is, well, it's kind of like, and me and Tyrone, that's if it wasn't him either, I wouldn't be here. He's been the one who's been kicking me in the butt and got me as far, and now he's catching up to me on books now, and I'm like, I gotta get off my butt and get some more out there. But he said to me one time, he was like, your stuff is going like Game of Thrones, man. He's like, I like that character, and you went and killed him. I'm like, yeah, don't get used to everybody. This is war. So there will be characters who will die because it's not G.I. Joe, but I'm not killing off everybody. But there's going to be a lot of bloodshed, taking place. And like I say, it's a all-out war that's taking place. So, I didn't want to be like, oh, come on, this person survived that, really, even though I did do a comedy piece in one. But, some things is just, I don't want to just make it seem like I'm just slaughtering everybody, but try to give people a more meaningful situation as to where you might come back and be like, I'm glad they killed that guy, or I'm glad that woman got killed. Finally, I see why they did it.
Well, to even go further into that, and I mean, I love diversification because it also allows me as a reader to get behind certain divisions or I could choose like the bad guys, for instance. I'm a big wrestling fan, and I'm the type of guy like that loves rooting for the heel. So I've been at shows where me and my friend were around a bunch of these 7-year-olds and we were rooting for the bad guy and we were trying to out train the 7-year-olds. It was great. It was really funny too. It's like their moms were just looking at me and my friend and like and we're like both like 25 and it was great. It was great. But one of the things and the reason why I bring this up is that it does allow though for people to become more invested in the story and really get interested in something and then say, hey, look, I want to buy a t-shirt from my favorite division because now you have a stake in the game. And if you're like me, I'm rooting for the bad guys. So if I think Shadow Major did something wrong and really caused this entire problem, they may or may not have. I'm not going to say. I will take the fifth. But hey, they might have been justified for all I'm saying. Hey, Mars, they might be running their country right or their planet right for all we know. But the whole point is that if I believe that adds a lot of monetization and it's brilliant, and this is like a common mistake I see that people make in the comic world with building out their universes, is that you're not creating enough division that if I hate 90% of your universe, but I love the 10%, you can still monetize that 10%. I see it where if I hate a piece of your universe, I hate your entire universe. And I think you've done something really special on that front. Like, I don't love everything in Robotech, but I love certain parts of Robotech. Like, I love New Generations. So if they have a New Generations T-shirt at an AnimeCon, I'm buying it. They got a regular Macross shirt or Robotech shirt, maybe I'll buy it. But I think it's something really, really smart on a business level that you've done. Whether that was intentional or not, you still deserve credit for it at least.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's the fun part, is the universe building. And I never even utilized that term before. I was just trying to just build up the story to tell it, because like I said in the beginning, it went through so many different transformations, you know.
Yeah, I think that says it all. I think that says it all. So I'll read the comment for those who can't see it. And forgive me if I get the name wrong. Mimi Nicole Love says that these stories should be on TV. I can visualize watching the stories play out in TV. So
Oh,
obviously, I definitely agree that this stuff should be on TV. At least an animated series would be dope.
oh, I'd love that. That would be, that's what we want to get to, is to get to that level to where if we ever do pitch the story to a company that can do the anime, we want to be able to say to them, you don't have to create anything new. You can just take the books and tell the entire story, through that way. You got a whole universe story from beginning to end, and can flush things out naturally in the anime with a little more conversation here and there, different little scenes being seen, different things like that.
Or
And
even just expanding what the book's done because you can take and obviously there's mobilization which kicks things off and then we have
mhm,
juggernauts 1 to 3 and you could turn that into 20, 25 episodes
e-
and you don't have to do everything in 70 pages for instance. You can go and do it in like 2 hour movie for instance and you could add a little more dialogue, maybe you get a quick jab, maybe you get like some fun dialogue in there and they're like I'll catch you and get my ramen noodles when they get back. And obviously, Juggernaut 1 to 3, doesn't exactly. It's sort of landing and dealing with the Raxxon and some Sergeant Randall Davis. We may or may not be related. I'm just saying. So but it's that entire thing, and even jumping into Juggernaut because Juggernaut's a fun book. That's a
Yeah.
fun 3 issues.
Yeah. That was an adventure when I did that one, because it was like it was flying out of my head like crazy. It was like, man, I mean, when I did that book, that one was, because it was literally, because after mobilization, because mobilization wasn't even supposed to be the way it was. It wasn't originally going to be a full-size comic book.
It's supposed to be
Originally,
like an ash can, right?
yeah, it was just like a filler piece that was going to go in my source books. And it was only going to be a few pages, just okay, little comic piece tease. And then Tyrone was the one that said, make it up, why don't you just make it a comic book? And I'm like, okay. And
I
he's like,
see
why
how
don't you
it
make
is.
comic books? And I'm like, I hadn't thought about that. He was like, do it. And I'm like,
We're blaming Tyrone now. I see how it is.
yeah, because he
Well,
was
if it makes you feel better, he's basically doing his podcast because of me. So he took my podcasting class, and I have much to teach him. Much like he has much to teach me about how to write a comic book. I have much to teach him about how to podcast and live stream, and I may or may not be building his show. Yeah. I'll do it for free because I don't mind, because I actually like building people's shows up. But yeah, no, it's kind of crazy. So like Juggernaut's really dealing with sort of taking out the Raxxon a little bit and dealing with getting onto the Raxxon's planet and all that crazy stuff that's going on, and also sort of dealing with maybe a unit is one of the units and one of the divisions isn't being so kosher, for lack of a better word. And
yeah,
I think that's a really good way how to put it, and also kind of having what do you do then when you got some serious problems with divisions and things aren't so cool anymore, and how do you deal with those problems? And it's really interesting. That entire 3 books are just fascinating.
yeah. And I
I'm,
had people
I'm being vague for a
at
reason.
one point. It was
I'm
I had to tell people that Juggernaut takes place not over a few days, but they're there for a while. Like for at least maybe 2 weeks. Close to a month that they're there, because you figure you can walk around an entire state on foot and not get anywhere. You know, if you're looking for something in particular. And with them being there, they have no idea where they're going.
So, so,
So
so let me ask you a question, and I actually don't know. What is Juggernaut for the audience that's listening? What point in the entire story of the beginning, middle, end does Juggernaut take place in? Because that's something that's really interesting, I think.
Juggernaut takes place probably like during the first year and a half of the Raxxon War with the humans, whereas nobody's been able to get feet on the ground on anybody. The planet that they brought, Cyphrides 3, we can't land on it because it is, as you can see in Juggernaut, severely guarded. They have thousands of ships, you know, in orbit around that planet. And so the thing was trying to find a way, because the only way we can get to the Raxxon is to get on the Cyphrides 3 and try to take it out. So that was, it's going to have to be a crazy suicidal plan to do it. So that's what happens in Juggernaut, is like, they've found some people who was like, okay, we'll do it. We'll go for it. We know it's going to be casualties, but hell, we got to try.
Because
And
it's really interesting, and obviously they discover a bunch of stuff, and I'm trying not to
yeah,
I think Sergeant Randall Davis is very happy that he was chosen for the mission.
he volunteered.
I'm pretty sure his volunteering position was very happy with what he discovered down there.
Yeah, yeah, he becomes
I'm not going to
very
ruin too much because there might be something coming out in Arc 2 with that.
well, let's just say that Randall's a very important person and it kind of touches off even in this first arc. So he's a character that's not going anywhere just yet.
Hey, you know what is to the victors go the spoils, and when he landed on that planet about a month in, he found exactly what he needed. You know what I'm referring to, and nobody else
Yeah.
does. So everybody, you got to buy the book to find out what we're referring to, and
Yeah, it's a lot,
so,
but
so, 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 so very, very, very interesting in that realm. And then also at the same time, we got Critical Strike going on. And maybe it's not at the exact same time, but that's sort of the next bunch of things that you put out. And this is dealing with, Shadow Major. And obviously, Shadow Major was introduced in Juggernaut to some degree. I'm not going to explain how they were introduced, but now you got them dealing with Planet Titan and addressing things that are going on with Planet Titan and why is Planet Titan important, and kind of dealing with we're outnumbered and is help coming. And that's a really interesting concept with this stuff. And that's like a whole nother realm as well, where this is a whole different story than Juggernaut. And it just shows versatility, I feel. And it's really a cool story because you have a unit that is someone trying to protect the planet. They don't really know why. And why is this planet important? And we sort of find out why Titan is important, when help comes, why help needs to come, and why the enemy wants this planet.
hmm it's without trying to give any spoilers away. Yeah.
No. Look, I mean, I'm not trying to give spoilers away either, because I actually like this. I actually got to buy your books in physical copy now. So it's like, I actually like your series. That's the problem. Like, if I get a job in the next 2 weeks, I mean, that's like where my first paycheck's going. And then my second paycheck's going to send them all off to CGC, but that's not the point. Joking aside, what is this like to really even tell a story where an enemy wants to take a planet and you're outnumbered, and the question becomes, is help gonna come, and whose help is gonna come? Because that's a very different story than Juggernaut. And Juggernaut is a very action invasion. This is more of a defensive story, and it's a cool concept in a lot of ways, but same time we're still dealing with these enemies, same issues, same aliens. And what was that like building it out and even just sort of shifting it up a little bit? Because again, we go back to you building out a universe and providing a different story and subsection and skill.
Yeah. Uh, with Critical Strike, it was to give information and also like say show things that are happening on the other worlds. Because what I didn't want to have people doing is fixating on just Earth or Mars, where you see there's a lot happening on other worlds, and then like say in Critical Strike, you see exactly what happens in both comics because it's part one and part two that you begin to understand and begin to see certain things that are unfolding, and so that it's not just one side now. It's kind of like you're starting to see other characters who are involved into something that's almost like a growing conspiracy, but it's like you begin to see maybe something.
Should we speak in code? Do we need to speak in code?
I'm trying.
Is there a Jonathan Wolf, New Generations Robotech going on?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. So it's like and for to be able to show, like say, it's actually. I will give this one spoiler that people will see in the book. How we got boots on the ground on their planet. They get them on this one. But that's all I'm going to say.
I'll give another also slight spoiler, but I don't think it's a big spoiler. We also start seeing how the Torva Hydax somewhat operate and how their structure is. where they are very much a hive type of alien creature. And we see a little bit of their internal structure too, which also adds a little bit of a humanizing element to them as well. And that's very interesting in its own right as well. And that's not a major spoiler, I don't think. But
Yeah.
you really start to understand the enemy, I feel, in Critical Strike. And again, once you start compiling all this stuff up together, it starts changes the way you view things. And it's so interesting to me that this is just another perspective of the war. I mean, I view your thing almost like Gundam UC, Universal Century, where we have War and Pocket, and then we have the OSMS team, and then we got Thunderbolts, and then we have, Char's counter. No, we don't have Char's. Char's counterattack is straight up. But you have like narrative. You don't need to watch narrative in UC. Don't watch narrative, guys.
Yeah.
It's a Macross movie in a Gundam universe. This is terrible. This is terrible. I'm legitimately gonna send this entire interview to a TV company and producer. I'm giving you guys legitly the thing that you should book. Because this is Arc 1 is legitly 7 years of TV. Easy.
Yeah. And the thing that I wanted to make sure that people, I didn't want to have my alien characters just so bland, where you wanted to be able to see that they're just not monstrous killers, that there's more things going on, and understanding, because in Critical Strike, you uncover a lot in that story. And that's what I wanted.
There's a freaking opening of the crest. It's like the arc opens up.
So
it changes everything.
Yeah, that story was a fun one because it was like I wanted to paint different pictures so that you see there's a lot going on, but it's just not a one-sided thing, where the aliens just trying to take over and kill everybody. No, it's you're beginning to start to see reasoning behind it, and you're starting to find out who, or begin to question who really is who and what's really going on. And I'm trying to break it down in the books to where it's not going to be like the show Lost, where it's like, what's going on? I'll explain to you everything. Next episode, nothing's explained, weeks, nothing explained. Then they say, I'll explain everything to you. Then nothing's still explained. You still don't know what the hell's going on. There's more crap going on. And you're like, you know what? And then it just ends with a big, what the?
Hey, I dropped out of Lost after season 5. I couldn't take it.
Yeah.
Take it.
Yeah. Or Game of Thrones.
Season 2 is okay. Season 3 was interesting. But man, season 4 and 5, they were wonky.
Yeah. Let's see. What I don't want to do is I don't want to have a Game of Thrones ending, how that ended. And it was just like,
you don't want Game of Thrones with the Starbucks coffee cup and then the production. And I thought it was an improvement. I mean,
I think that's when they was just like, whatever. They wrote this crap. When they saw what the script was going to be and how it ended, I think they just said, you know what, I don't even care anymore. Nothing's going to get explained. This isn't going to go the way everybody expected. So screw it. We don't care what's left out.
We're over. We already made our money. We made our money 6 years ago.
Yeah.
We made our money years ago. We made our money.
Yeah.
So I do want to continue talking about these stories, but I do want to get paid today. And so we're going to be back in 35 seconds. Our friends over at Cowabunga Comics got some awesome comics, and I'm going to show you what they can do. So we'll be back in 35 seconds, everybody. And we're back. I got paid, so we're all good. but obviously, Cowabunga Comics got a lot of really cool comics. Guy who runs it is down in Florida, Kyle. Awesome shop, really cool variants. I recommend you check them out. They got some Department of Truth variants that are coming, and I gotta say, some of Kyle's best work. I think it's like his second cover as an artist, and go check it out. I think it's coming out either out next week or first week in April. But enough about Kyle. And thanks to Kyle because he backed my Kickstarter. So he bought a bunch of ads. So that's our playing then. But I do want to talk about Advents of Alpha Turbine because when we talk about showing another perspective of the war as well, this is not about the aliens at
Right.
all. This is about Crimson Star and another division and governance, for lack of a better word. And so what's the whole thing behind this? Because this is super interesting because this shows that maybe the aliens aren't the biggest problem.
Right. With Advents of Alpha Turbine, like I say, we want to show another division and also introducing new mechs into the series, new lines as they're creating newer ones, over time, and that division's, was what they were up to, and also the other aspect, spoiler alert, pirates that exist out there. In the galaxy that are not divisions, but pirates. Um, and those characters that are become unique and main characters, down the lines. And yeah, and in Advents, you see that there is a division within divisions, and also you see kind of begin to see who's actually not really on your side or for you, and opening up that conspiracy that was being uncovered a little bit more, that the other divisions are beginning to see that there's something going on within, you know, outside of the aliens, but within the humans that is going on that, you know, show a lot more, how can I put it, dynamics that are taking place.
There's something, and it's starting to smell a lot like fish,
Yeah.
And then that also sort of shows what's going on, and then it leads a little bit into the plan a little bit, which is dealing with obviously Crimson Star and their play for power and what's going on with that. And I don't think that we need to go to explain that one, but that's kind of what I think admin sort of leads into in certain ways, is that clearly we're starting to see that divisions and planets and units are starting to formulate their own ideas away from their original formations and missions. And they're starting to watch their asses a little bit and also say, hey, look, this division is somewhat weak. Maybe we can take some ground on those, divisions. Maybe we can keep some stuff to give us an edge, because also, and I don't know how far you have it planned out, but there's going to get a point where I think these aliens either are going to kill all of humanity, and humanity's going to be dead, and none of this is going to matter. Or conversely, they're going to beat back these aliens, or these aliens are going to be a constant threat, but then humanity and divisions are going to interfight each other. And well, that's sort of the end game to some degree, I would imagine, or a potential end game after this alien stuff is dealt with, or the aliens are considered to be another 3 or 4 divisions themselves. And now it's a constant intergalactic, and all these divisions are liberated from each other, and some are allies and some are not. So not to ruin things out there, but that's kind of what I think the plan is hinting at. You don't have to answer any question.
Was that a question, or was that a question or a speculation?
That's just saying, buy this book because it's going to be worth money.
Because let me give you some. Well, I can give you this information on Raxxon, is that like I
There's an
said,
arc 2, guys, coming.
yeah, there's several arcs that are actually in the works right now. We're working on, literally at this very moment, arcs 2 and 3. and we're chopping through them. You know, as far as having the stories and everything, we're even looking for new artists, you know, affordable ones to do the comics as well. But what we also are working on are the which we had source book one, and the source books, you know, they're thick, and what we're trying to do is just get the, you know, best bang for the buck. We did a soft run of a few soft covers. We really wanted the hard covers, you know, but of course hardcovers super expensive to print. But we when we did the soft cover run, we sold them because we didn't do a big print. But I seen a few mistakes in it here and there that I said I wanted to go back and revise it, add more content, not necessarily pages, but just more information into it, you know, to flesh out just a bit more information, and also how some of the drawings were, so that they're not cut off on two-page spreads. So we're in the process of redoing that, because when we did it, you know, we just did it ourselves and paid for it ourselves. So it was expensive enough, but a Kickstarter would definitely help.
I was
So,
about to ask that question. Is
so
that, you know,
once
one of
we
the things?
once we finish revising it, we're going to do a Kickstarter. So putting that out there, and going to, you know, get as much aid and everything on it as possible to make sure that we're going the right direction. Because we would, like I say, we would love a hard cover. That's the goal. So, you know, so it's like it gets the best bang for its buck. But also, there are going to be up to 7 source books, and they are over 275 pages each. Each book tells divisions, characters, stats of planets, uh, basically everything of the Raxxon universe is in these books. And the other thing was, because when it started, I almost made it a game, you know, and it was like when I created the stats for everybody, it was almost like an RPG when I was telling it. So I said, you know what, let me take it further, you know, and just start fleshing out more and more and more and more, to where people can see a lot more in the story, so that you know, when they see the book, that if they, let's say for instance, they, whatever the price of the book is, I'm not going to try to kill anybody with the price of the book, but whatever they're getting their bang for their buck. You know, you're going to see it's not in black and white, it's going to be in full color. um, Tons of information, technology, ships, mechs, characters, aliens, all of that. So with book one, we're revising it. So there's going to be just more information in it for those that bought book one before. We're going to take care of those people as well. But I'm also currently working on book two at the very moment, which is going to be completely about the aliens. So you're going to see the aliens, the alien ships, the alien mechs, the alien characters, their worlds that they were from, everything about the aliens and their technology, um, as well as the Raxxon itself, which is going to have its cameo in that book. And there's going to be a lot of information on it, and you'll be able to see it full size in the book. So people, from what they saw in the comic books, the little glimpses, you better see the whole thing and see what's going on with that one. And that book, I'm hoping to have ready to be finished this year, because doing all the stats for all of that is a lot of, you know, to come out of your head and everything, and put it on paper. So sometimes I have my brain freezes and everything locks up, and I'm sitting there for days like, okay, I got to come back to this. I got to put it down and come back, put it down and come back, as well as the comics. So yeah,
So
it's
let's even talk about that, because I was about to ask you about Kickstarter, because I don't think you've been on Kickstarter before. And so that's, I mean, obviously I didn't do what I wanted to do on Kickstarter. I funded everybody, but I understand Kickstarter is a whole different beast. But I'm just even thinking on a lot of levels, just on the fact that people love mecha stuff, people like this, you have a big following, and you're growing your following. Not to mention that stretch goals could be adding pages, could be adding glossy stuff into it, could be adding art prints. You could actually make it that if you raise a certain amount of money, it starts off as a soft cover and becomes a hardcover. And then also it's a lot of press because I know people who love source books. And so what is that like? Because it opens up a whole boatload of stuff and then you're gonna catch the Kickstarter bug. And Tyrone might not be happy because he's left Kickstarter. But that's not as a customer, not as a customer, but as a producer. And but that's neither here nor there. We don't make fun of people all that much anymore. On this show. Unless they truly deserve it. But he could take a few shots. And so that's my dog. And she's very excited.
Looks
And
like
she's very, very excited. And she's in a very jumpy mood, but she'll back the Kickstarter, I promise. But yeah, what is that like for you, really coming into that and going down that route? Because I think it's a great move.
the funny thing is, I did a Kickstarter for book one, and I pulled
I
it.
was wrong. I bet.
I did it years ago, and it was just me touching the waters, because I'd never done any crowdfunding before. And I'm kind of glad I did stop because the book was nowhere near ready as I had, hoped it would be. When I did it, I was by myself pretty much. I don't even think Damone was the one who helped me with it at that time. I want to say Tyrone helped me with the Kickstarter a little bit, but we were still brand new to it. And the amount of money I was trying to get was a ridiculous amount of money to get the hardcover prints. I was trying to go through Print Ninja, and for the book size that I was trying to get, for the amount of pages and everything like that, they don't print small volumes. I had to get like 250 books. So let's just say that came to dang near $10,000. And I'm like, nobody knows me like that to get me anywhere near that amount. But I wound up getting, a few thousand. But as the time was getting closer and closer to the Kickstarter, I was like, this isn't going to work. And I started looking back at the book, and I'm like, nah, this isn't quite the way I want it. So I stopped it and went back to the drawing board on the book. And I'm glad I did, because the way the book is now, it's definitely, the way it stands as it is right now is Kickstarter worthy. But I don't want to get hooked on Kickstarter, of course, either. It's like
I was going to ask that too.
yeah, I want people to be able to just buy it, to say, hey, it's enough. I'm making enough money to get more prints, and go from there.
With my entire thing, and this is a big debate with Kickstarter. Like, I have other sponsors outside of Kickstarter, and I actually got my sponsors before I was on Kickstarter. And Kickstarter is just to give me a little bit more, where my objective was very low.
Mhm.
$750 gives me about $50 of wiggle room, but it keeps me in the game for the next 2 years. And that was the whole point. So that, God forbid, I don't have a sponsor, I can continue to do this and survive another 2 years.
Right.
But I don't want to rely on Kickstarter. I just viewed Kickstarter as saying, hey, let me get across a hump and let me just solidify my business a little bit. And I think that's very important. I think that's a whole different ball game where some people want to rely on Kickstarter and I do not. I am making a bunch of decisions in the next year to 2 years
Mm.
to use Kickstarter, raise $1,000 to basically cover my costs, and then, but also bring in other money and other things to improve the show and grow the show and push the show out there and expand. But the majority is I want outside money versus Kickstarter money to fuel the expansion. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like that's a mistake creators make as well, where you need to diversify what you're doing and you need to diversify your income streams by definition. And that's a big problem I feel that's happening on Kickstarter right now.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
I don't know how you feel about
yeah, because I've had people say, shoot for the moon with it, And then I've had other people say, well, if you're, because I've been just used to doing everything, on my own, and it's just like,
Brick by brick, right?
relying
Brick
on
by brick.
everybody else. So, I've had to save my money, spend my money, my own money out of my pocket, and just do it, because I didn't want to rely on, a Kickstarter, and then I don't meet my goal and I'm still, left without the product, versus if I just saved money, work towards it, and put my money up, or do like Tyrone did when he did one. He told me, he was like, don't ask for the full amount. Like, if you know what your goal is, shoot for a lesser amount with that. And if it exceeds, great. But at least you covered under what you could afford and what you'd be willing to pay going forward. That way your product is funded, people get to see it, and that's still advertisement, and that grows from there. And I was like, that's
That's
the advice I needed
why
when I first did mine.
that's the whole thing, is that I had X amount of money in sponsorship money that I didn't spend, and it was just sitting in my PayPal account, and I still have some of that left over. And so that was added to my goal. So I theoretically could have basically kept my goal at $100. And that's probably a mistake I made, where I should have kept my goal like $250. I'm like, this is all I need, guys. And I have a feeling I would have been funded in like the first 3 days. And I probably should have kept my goals a little bit lower, and I should have kept them a little bit healthier and a little bit cheaper. And I got a feeling I would have been funded a lot quicker and I probably would have done better. But if I come back for season 4, it's just bonus money because I have sponsorship money for me, and that's how I view it. But I feel like it's a tricky business collectively, the
Yeah,
entire Kickstarter market.
yeah. Because it's like, trying for me, it was, and still, like Tyrone's going to help me out now. Like me and Damone, we're terrible with advertising. We say that every time. I am horrible with advertising. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to make any excuses. Me and social media, I'm like, I'll be feeling like when my father was alive, with a brand new TV. How do you operate this thing? It's like, oh, you got to get on here. You got to start posting more often. I'm like, okay, I'm hardly on here, but okay. So it's just getting, the right content. Then also with me, I was a lot of times worried about copyright infringement, because like when I draw something new, you have people that say you should post that. And my fears was always, okay, if I post it, if somebody takes it, rips it off before I get it copywritten, you know, where I gotta fight with them in a whole nother court, which can be extremely expensive. So it's like those little things, but it's like you gotta take the chances at some point to get your content out there so people can see it, catch eyes. And with the way everything is these days, people want to see stuff versus just you saying, well, it's coming, and I don't want to be like lost. I'll tell you next week, this week and this and everything, nothing shows. So trying to get things out there. Like I say, we're going to be advertising for the first arc hard coming, um, so that people can see it. We're trying to reboot basically to get everything out there. Website, we're going to be making updates to that, where we're going to be adding digital copies of the comics on there that people can buy. They can already order the physical copies off of there. We're also on Comixology on under Raxxon Universal Dominion, so they can see all 12 comics on there. But if people want to get a digital copy of the comic, they can inbox me directly, or ask me, how can I get a digital copy? Or if you have to do digital copies, yeah, we're getting into the digital copies now. So if anybody wants any, we can provide them for them. Hard copies, same thing. People want them, we have them. They can inbox me directly, or they can go to the website and order directly. Because what we got to take down is because we are out of stock on the source books currently, but we're going to be revamping that first one this year for sure. We're already checking into some hardcover companies that we're trying to test the waters with to see how their print is and their production lines that aren't ones that aren't saying that you got to do 250 or big bulks, where they're like you can do a print on demand. So that's a little easier on the pocket, So we're checking out some of those right now, and also preparing for Comic Con that's coming here in Detroit through Andre Batts, Motor City Age of comic books, and this will be my first time vending at his. His was actually the first Comic Con that I ever went to in my life, and it was a great experience. So it also inspired me to go forward, and I met a lot of people through there, like Jarvis Sheffield, um, Andre himself, lots of people, and I met Tyrone through dealing with that, and me and him clicked, and he's got to bring his ass back here to Detroit, like I told him, because we gotta have some more fun. But me and him have also we've always been building off each other. Like I would send him my books while they're in the draft stages, let him check it out and see what he thinks about it and where it needs any improvements or anything or any changes or typos or errors like that. And he'd do the same thing with me. So we're we're always building off each other, which is a good thing. So like I say, he's like my number one guy to help me with social media because he's always posting and me and I'm always seeing his stuff and I'm like, yeah. So he's like, look, I'm going to help you. I'm like, thank you. I said, I'll keep drawing stuff for you because a lot of stuff that I've drawn for Tyrone is in his comics, like a lot of ships, vehicles. The one book he has, Orisha Exos, I draw the mechs in that one and the ships. So we kind of build off each other. And it's like he always name drops me on his podcast and everything. And I'm like, cool. So I always got to do the same with him. And I got to say, thanks to Dave Hohensi, if he ever sees this, because he was the one who started me on the RPG books, the Palladium RPG books. That got me really started into doing the stats for Raxxon. So that was back in 1990, 91. But going back to the comics, with the arc, it's a lot that's going to be in the next two arcs. That's going to be a lot more details, fleshing out more characters, more character development. So it's not just seeming like it's just surface battle. But I will give this one only spoiler about the arcs. In the third arc, I will say this: it's going to be flat out all warfare. It's going to be, I mean, it's going to be across the board warfare. So that arc is going to be an all-out war, you know. But like I say, we're as far as how many arcs there will actually be, I can't say yet. But because the story is an expansive story, and like I say, it takes place over a generation or two. But there's a lot of things that's going to be happening with main characters that you see, and a lot of main characters that's going to be introduced. And like I say, with the comics, we're trying to flesh out the story for those who may be into the comics, but also with the source book, so that people who may not be in the comics can get the source book and be like, okay, I can understand everything. Because with the source books, we're going to be kicking off other things like we're currently working on. Like we're working on an RPG game. We're looking into video games, which is a lot, as well as animation and also toy line for a lot of the mechs and the ships and the bases. So there's a lot happening in Raxxon. Like say, like if we was to ever pitch it to anybody, to a company, if they were to say, okay, what are we getting out of it? What can we get as far as products? We got products that people will want to buy, hopefully. I'm always going to say hopefully because you can't please everybody. But from like ships, mechs, toys, characters, all of that are things that we are currently working on. And I'm trying to get like Tyrone as far as getting me some cosplayers and some of my characters. So those are some things that we're looking into as well.
I can find you a bunch.
I'm going to need them. I'm going to need them because I have no problem with everything.
I already have one person in mind. I already have one person off the top of my head, but we'll talk after.
Okay. And we give recognition to everybody that we work with on Raxxon. So like on our media page on our website, you can see everybody who's worked, anybody who I've done commissions through. That's from the artwork to the books to designs that I couldn't do myself. I list them all, you know. So cosplayers will be listed on our website, pictures. We love to give credit, and that's what we do in our comic books. And that's the other thing, just to let people know too, with our comic books, we put parental discretion is advised because we want to put that disclaimer in there because there is violence, there is cussing. These are not for little kids. This is more of a borderline rated R kind of thing here. But the things we just haven't stepped into or really plan to do is get into sex and nudity and all of that stuff. It's like, yeah, really doesn't need that. Maybe some hints of certain things or implied, but we want to keep it to the more sci-fi genre where you don't just have to break onto a sex scene out of nowhere for whatever reason.
Yeah, and then obviously, I'm just going to mention it really quickly. There's a few other things. Obviously, we didn't speak about the plan or the Mortor Boy Legion, and then the sequel to that, which is Last Man Standing. But obviously, those are just more war stories, and there's some of the best stuff out there. And it's the underdogs. The Mortor Boy Legion is the underdog unit, and they're very cool. And basically, they're the rejected mechs and expanders, and they're basically kicking the aliens' asses with inferior machines. So if you don't like a good underdog story, I don't know what to tell you. So in Last Man Standing is that expansion, and all this stuff is stacking up. And obviously in Arc 2, we're getting into what is known into Arc 3, which is sort of throughout there is all out war, and probably some of these units are going to be somewhere mixed up in all this shit. So it's going to be very, very exciting with everything. But I don't want to push too hard. And then we also have Nick the Frozen Soul. I think I said the plan. We spoke about the plan. It's Nick the Frozen Soul, which all this stuff's going on too and all that. So obviously, if you like anything that you heard, you can pick all this stuff up and you could actually pick all of it up. I think it's all in print. I think you could order it off your website, Comixology. You get it off of Comixology, other areas, and I'm sure that if something is not on your site, they could probably just message you and you can figure out a way how to get it if you have it in stock.
Yeah.
But
they can get it on our main website, raxxondominion.com. So they can go there and order and see a lot of stuff on it because we have a huge website.
Yeah, you do have a big website, and you have a bunch of ships, and I know you just built a ship, so and you were very proud of it. 3 feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not going to press you on that. I just thought. But you do a lot of stuff, and you obviously have a lot of ships. The source book is a big thing, and that's coming. I think hopefully this year. I think the source book on Kickstarter, and hopefully a hardcover. And I'll be pushing it out. I might be broke, but I'll be pushing it out for sure. And you're always welcome back, and we can talk about it however much you want, anytime. But I do want to back out of your comics and the entire Raxxon universe, and we sort of spoke about it a little bit. But I am curious where you view, indie comics going, conventions going, as far as selling, also having a bigger digital footprint online, and even just the sustainability of crowdfunding, Kickstarter, and all those entities, because those are really interesting topics, and there is real division that people are having with a lot of this stuff. So I'm curious your thoughts on all of that.
Well, like I said, we're trying to get our social media platforms better with advertising on social media. We do good at conventions with hard copies when people can see, because we tell people pick up the book. We don't hold it and tell you can't pick it up and read it. Tell people when they come up to the table, hey, pick one up, go ahead, look through it. And when they're interested in buying it, they be like, well, I'll take this one. Be like, no, you don't want that one. You want a new one. So, we give them a brand spanking new one. You don't want one with con crud on it. So, you want a brand new book. And they'll ask them and everything like that. So we'll autograph it and we put it in the sleeve and everything, and here you go, you got your book, you know. So at the conventions, we do pretty good. A lot of times we sold a lot of books at the convention that we went to. As far as online, like I say, we're slowly getting into that, to doing the online sale and the digital, which seems like a lot of people are wanting to do these days if they don't want to get the hard copies. So we're expanding into that platform, which is it's tricky for us because, like I say, trying to find our genre, trying to find it in the the right niche and get it to the right areas of advertising, to social media so people can see it, to know that we're even out there, because you got so many people out there. It's like, and everybody is into the superheroes these days, and I'm like, yeah, we're not into that. We're totally somewhere else on that, you know. But it's just trying to find those people who are interested in seeing a new mech story and willing to spend money on a new mech story is the other piece, because in the
Yeah.
big thing of it, we're just a penny in a bucket the size of a house. So it's just trying to get seen, and the more stuff that we're creating, so that when we are seeing it, they're saying, okay, wait a minute, what have I been missing with these guys? They got this. Oh, okay, let me see what's here, and it just explodes open. So we're going for wow effects as well as just saying, okay, well, we got these comic books and this source book. Well, what else do you got? Well, we got 3D prints of ships and mechs. We've got YouTube video. We got this and we got that, and we're coming out with more stuff. So what more do you want? Or what would you like to see? So those are things that we're tapping into, and of course, everything costs money. So trying to find people who can get us what we need and do what we need to do for the best bang for our buck that's
And
affordable.
also in a timely fashion, because that's the other thing
Exactly.
too.
Exactly. So, that's those are things, because like I work full time, so I can't do a lot throughout the day, that I would like to do. But when I can, when I'm home, I'm on it. I've been slowly getting myself, well, I've gotten myself back engrossed into Raxxon, to where looking in so many different directions of everything, looking at this whole universe like, okay, start pulling everything in now, and seeing which way am I going to go next, which, as far as the comics go, as far as the source books go, what's going to be in this one, what's going to be in that one, and to show people that, when each book, it's not something that's, okay, this one is dead, they all going to have like the same formats, so that you'll be seeing new divisions in each book, new people, all kind of new things, new mechs. You won't see the same thing in another book. So that's the one assured thing. So like I
You
say,
got a hell of a universe, man.
yeah, it's like I'm trying to take.
I would love to play in your universe. I would love to. I'd probably screw it up, but I would. It's just it would be fun. It'd be fun to like write like a lost colony story in your universe. Oh, it'd be great.
Hey,
You should do that. You should do an anthology.
that's kind of what the source books were to an extent, but we're working on that as well, because we're working on currently bundle packages of the volumes of the comic books. So the first arc is going to be in volume books, so volume 1, 2, and 3, which will be books 1 through 4, 4 through 8, 8 through 12. So those
A
are,
lot of stuff going on.
yeah, and those are coming out probably in the next few months. So something to look forward to, that we'll be posting out there. So if people don't want to buy individual comics, they'll have that option. So that's the other thing, is that we're working on creating is more and more options for the content that we have, so that people can see
Yeah.
a lot of things that we have, and more things coming that we have coming down the line. And because I can't give away too many spoilers of what we got coming, but
It's all right. It's all right. We'll stop
we're,
right there
we're
before
working
you
on some big
start.
things. I'll just say that.
And then obviously I was going to give you a chance to self promote, but I think you just did that. So obviously though, I mean it's Raxxon. What's the website? And then people get to the store, and then The Kickstarter's not up yet or anything like that. So when that thing is up, I'll link it back into this interview, and I'm sure you'll be on, and I'm sure you'll be talking about it. Maybe I'll get Tyrone on, and then we could go yell at Tyrone for leaving Kickstarter, and we could kick him out of the club. And don't worry, I'm totally sending this part to him. So this is what, if our friendship ends with him, it's all right. he has Aaron, so it's all right.
Yeah, he's been my rock, as far as in the indie industry with comic books and everything like that. He's been one who's been pushing me and saying, just take a break or keep it going, don't stop. And I think right now he might have just as many books as I do because I currently have 12 comics. He might have I have to look because I got all his books because I told him, I said, I gotta have everything you have. I said, I want shirts, I want all your merchandise because you're always getting all of mine. So you got to give me yours. So I got to count how many books he has because his stuff, I love his stuff as well. We're in two different genres, but he's taking one story.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
gotta buy some stuff. I really do.
he's taking one of the stories, and I'm not going to say because that's a spoiler alert. And I don't know if he wants that said yet, but he's taking the one that was a mech design, and he's taking it to another level, which is pretty sweet. So
So we're not going to spoil anything he's doing. He's
yeah,
going to be coming on at some point, probably later this year, or whenever he wants to come on. He's more than welcome to. If I have space and if I'm feeling like I want to interview that week, because that's something that I'm doing is that every 12 weeks or every 14 weeks I'm taking a week off this year, so I could go play Halo. Hey, I am bad at Halo, so I need the practice. Like I need to play 40 hours of Halo to get good at it. I just had my first sword kill today. So
oh,
but my gravity hammer skills are pretty good. So I will be more than happy to design you a gravity hammer mech based on Halo. It'd be really funny, and I would do it for free. Oh, it'd be great. I'd put my little elf on the shoulder pad of one of them. Oh, it'd be great.
let's see what you come up with.
I'll build it out of Lego first, and then I'll figure out how to draw. See, you laugh now, but when I show it to you, you're gonna be like, "Oh man, that's fucking awesome!" Can I just have the free instructions for it? I'll build it on Segway 2. It'd be great, or I'll build it on whatever 2 is, or Pixel 2, and you give it as a stretch goal. You know how funny of a stretch goal that would be?
It'll probably hit it real quick too.
It'd be like, "Oh, I want this, all the piece count. Oh, I'll do it. I'll build a Lego mech or something," and then you'll be like, "Fuck, I gotta not put this in my book." But I digress. I think you self-promoted enough. If somebody watches this interview and doesn't want to buy your book, I don't know what we did wrong. So,
I know I say a lot, so I got to work on that.
I don't know if nobody after listening to this doesn't want to buy your book, then clearly we both did something wrong. So it's not us is the problem.
Right.
I digress right there, and I'm gonna just keep saying it. And I've been saying it for almost 28 months now. You have to support indie, and what that means is you have to back independent projects. If somebody has a book on their website, buy the book on their website. If somebody has a book on a Kickstarter, back their Kickstarter. If somebody has Indiegogo, buy the book there. Obviously share it out on Twitter, check it out on wherever else it is. It's a webtoon, get it there, Comixology, all those places. If it's on Comixology Unlimited, actually read it because it does make a difference, and actually let somebody know what it is. And so my dog doesn't know how to behave clearly when I'm trying to promote a book here. And so, obviously, as I was saying, obviously sharing out, buying books, it makes a big difference and it goes a long way. And I get it. If it's not your cup of tea, completely understand that. It's the idea that, though, that there's a lot of other books that a lot of creators have, and you should be supporting them there as well. And if even if you don't like something they're doing, tell a friend about the book because that also goes a long way. Because I'm a big mecha guy and I like mecha books. I have friends who hate the genre of mecha. So I get it, but if they see a mecha book, they're going to tell me about it. And they're like, oh, this is a cool book. So that's all I'm going to say on that front. As far as I'm concerned about me, with everything that I'm doing, obviously use my sponsors. Mixum's a sponsor. If you need to bring your book, 5% off. Andrew Davis at checkout. Mixum's really cool. They got like a digital proof checker stuff. I think they are working on something where you could actually send books in certain countries that they will print there, that they have printers there, and they will do the printing for you there, which is actually a game changer in a lot of ways. You don't get the tchotchkes on Kickstarter, but if you're just looking for books, that's kind of cool that they're doing, and I think they're still working it out. Also, you could go check out my metal card with DJ Croft. DJ is going to be up in Wizard World, and my metal cards are coming in 3 days. So I am super excited. I got 121 of these. DJ will be selling some of them up in Philly, I think in the first week of April. And he's going to have about 58 of them. So I'm hoping he sells out, and then I'm going to be selling the rest on my eBay store. And DJ is somewhat of a business partner in that venture. Are really cool. He's an amazing cosplayer. This is my t-shirt. I don't always eat tacos, but when I do, it's at Londo Bell. I'm a Ray, Taco Bell, most interesting man in the world. Red Bubble, buy my t-shirt, everybody. I need the money badly. I like Gundam also, so go do that. It's also in reference to Fallout, so that's kind of cool right there. And yeah, if you want to advertise on my show, pay me money, and you can have an advertisement spot. So I need the money, and I got some cool stuff coming. And let's just say in 3 months, the advertisement, there's going to be a few options for advertisements, and they're going to be super cool, but I'm not going to tell much about that at the moment. But right now, I'm pretty cheap. It's buy me a coffee. So if you're interested in advertising on my show, there you go. Otherwise, I will see everybody on the flip side. And on that point, I'm going to give you the final word.
Check us out at raxxondominion.com. Hope you like the books, support, and I had a great time being here with Andrew Davis once again. Look
Oh,
forward to
yeah.
being
It's great. I'm sure you're going to be back at some point this year.
Works for me. Definitely.
And that, everybody, is a wrap.